Have you ever been in a situation where you saw someone in need, but you weren't sure if you should stop and help? Maybe it was on the side of the road and you saw a stranded driver, or perhaps you noticed someone in a parking lot who was asking for help. And immediately your mind starts to weigh the situation, weigh the risks. Is it safe? Could this be a scam? What if I were putting myself and my family in danger? To be honest, this is a real tension. We live in a world where discernment is necessary. Sadly, some people do take advantage of others' kindness. And wisdom means we don't blindly rush into every situation. But here's the danger. If we're not careful, our need for discernment can easily become an excuse for disengagement. Fear can paralyze us into never showing compassion at all. And it's into this tension between compassion and caution that Jesus tells one of his most famous parables, the story of the Good Samaritan. The parable doesn't give us a checklist for every situation. Instead, what I think it does is reorients our hearts, and it challenges us with a bigger question. What does it mean to love our neighbor? The gospel writer Luke sets up the scene like this in Luke chapter 10. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Luke 10 and verse 25. Jesus responds with a question of his own. What is written in the law? And the man answers, "Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your strength, and with all of your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself." Jesus affirms this statement, do this and live. But the man pushes a bit further into the conversation. He wanted to justify himself, so he asked, "Who is my neighbor?" And that's the setup. The man seems to want limits. He wants boundaries. He wants to know who qualifies as my neighbor and who do I actually need to show love to. And Jesus replies with this parable, with this story. Jesus said a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes and beat him, and they went away, leaving him half dead. Now, as I understand, the road from Jerusalem to Jericho was notoriously dangerous. It was rocky, steep, a place that was known for bandits and a place that had plenty of places for bandits to hide out on the roadside. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed on the other side. So too a Levite came, and when he came to that place and saw him, he passed by on the other side. Both of these, the priest and the Levite, were religious leaders. They saw the man, but they chose to avoid him, passing by on the other side. And maybe they feared being religiously impure. Maybe they didn't want the inconvenience and the hassle. Maybe they reasoned that it was just safer to keep moving. But a Samaritan, Jesus says, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. Now, as I understand, the Greek word here means to be moved with like a deep compassion, a deep compassion that drives action, and that's important. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his donkey and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And it doesn't stop here. The next day, he took out 2 denarii and gave to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for the extra expenses you may have." It's this outsider this despised outsider who shows compassion. And Jesus asks in verse 36, which of these do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. And notice in his reply, it's almost like he can't even bring himself to say the Samaritan. There was a tension between the Samaritans and the Jews in this time, a deep-seated tension. The one who had mercy on him. And Jesus replies. In fact, he states this. It's quite a simple statement, but it's also very radical. Jesus says, go and do likewise. The parable, in many ways, I think, redefines our understanding of compassion. Compassion is not about who qualifies as our neighbor. The parable is about becoming a neighbor to whoever's in need. It's not just a feeling, we notice, but compassion, mercy, is action. And at times, it's going to cost something. So let's pause and kind of think about this. What can we do? How can we live this out in our lives today? I want to give you 2 points to consider. First is this: pause and notice. Pause and notice. The priest and the Levite saw the man, but they looked away. How often do we rush by? True compassion begins with slowing down long enough to see and to recognize a need. Number 2, act with mercy. Act with mercy. The Samaritan didn't just feel something. He did something. And compassion is often going to come with a cost. It may be time. It may be energy, comfort, money. There's going to be a cost. But that's the call of Jesus. And here is where discernment and compassion meet. Sometimes it may not be safe or even wise for us to get directly involved or directly engage. But that doesn't mean that we are to do nothing. Sometimes compassion may look like calling for help. Sometimes compassion may look like connecting others with someone or other resources. It may be involving others who can assist. The challenge here and the call here is not to be reckless in our action, but to be merciful in our action and to be neighbors. At the core of this parable of the Good Samaritan, it's not about defining who qualifies as our neighbor. It's about becoming a neighbor. Compassion crosses boundaries. It removes excuses, and compassion takes action. So here's Jesus' challenge for us today. In our culture, in our time, go and do likewise. This week, who might God be calling you to see differently? Who might God be calling you to slow down and to notice? Who might be waiting for someone to show compassion? Because compassion just isn't what we feel. Compassion is what we do.